Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yeah, let's go. Well, my next guest is a listener-turned guest because he has been knee-deep in so many of these issues that we talk about on a regular basis. He's a former superintendent of public schools here around the state of Texas and has since branched off and now runs, Lance, you have the Seek Collaborative, if I'm saying that right, and not the religion S-I-K-H, S-E-E-K, Seek Collaborative. Was that for homeschoolers?
Yeah, James. So again, thanks for having me on. So the Seek, S-E-E-K Collaborative is a hybrid school in Parker County, started by a couple of moms, and then I came on board a year and a half ago as a consultant and started an education foundation for them. And to my knowledge, James, we're the only education foundation in the state that solely supports homeschool families.
There you go. Thank you for describing that better than I could. Now, it's National School Choice Week, and that means nothing. I'm really interested in what's going on in Austin. There's a couple of competing school choice bills, and I'm told that one of them is absolutely wrong.
Well, I haven't seen what the House has put out, and I don't think the House has put theirs out yet. But I looked at SB 2, and I watched the entire hearing yesterday, and I've read through the bill, the legislation. And I can tell you, any of your listeners out there that are once again relying on the government to come to the aid of your child's education, you're barking up the wrong tree. You're waiting on something that's never going to happen. If the government continues to have their hands in our school system, we're going to continue to have government-controlled minds with our kids. And Senate Bill 2 is chock full of government regulations. Go out, tell your listeners to go out and look at it. If they can't understand it themselves, give me a call. Go to my website, commonsenseedu.com. But it is chock full of just, once again, creating another layer of bureaucracy for parents to have access to the right to send their kid to the school they want to go to. And it is not a good bill, in my opinion. You're going to hear a lot of people say that it is a good bill. And the reason they're saying that is because they want something. They're desperate for something. This is not the answer. We've got to get government out of our schools. And, this is something I've always asked people. They say, well, we need the government to give us this money. Do people forget the government doesn't have money? That's your money in the first place. The government doesn't have a money tree out in Austin that they say, oh, well, we can give you little handouts here and there. That's our money as taxpayers, and it's time we demand it back, and we let us use it where we want to use it for our kids without strings attached to it. Because if you look at that bill, it's going to tell you that it's got to be government-approved vendors, government-approved education providers. They still have to take norm reference tests. They're going to have to turn in reports to the comptroller on how the students did on those tests, whether or not they're career and college and military ready. It's the same thing they're doing in public schools. They're just going to say, well, you can just go to a private school and do this instead, but we still want this data.
All right, Lance, we talked on yesterday's James Show about a teacher in Fort Worth who lost his job from Fort Worth ISD because he made a tweet saying, hey, Department of Education, or I forgot what federal agency he added in his tweet. But he says, we have a whole lot of illegals at the school I work at. A lot of them can't even speak English with me without using a translator app in 11th grade. And that cost him his job. And I mean, did he do anything wrong? I'm not familiar enough with school policies to know if that's a fireable offense, but that didn't really seem like it was, malicious or dangerous or out of pocket.
No, let me tell you my experience, James. You're exactly right. Schools have stripped educators from their freedom of speech rights for years on one hand. But on the other hand, I've seen mediocre educators have a full career, 25, 30 years of sitting in the classroom, just sitting there, really not doing a whole lot, kind of flying under the radar, and their mediocre kids aren't getting what they need. And we can't fire them. We can't terminate them because of the Chapter 21 provisions. So at the end of the day, here's the reality. I've been in this a long time. I sat in the superintendent's chair for 14 years in 4 different regions in the state of Texas. I know a lot of our representatives and senators. We've told them for years how to fix this, and we can fix the public education system. It's broken. There's a lot to fix, but it's not difficult and it's not complicated. There's a lot of things we could do overnight to fix this, but the reality is your legislature doesn't want to do that. Your legislature doesn't want true school choice. Your legislature doesn't want to give parents the right with their money. Again, it's their money. They take it in taxes, but it's our money. Just don't forget that. And they do not want to just flat out let us fix this whole system because the truth is all the private schools in the state of Texas, all the homeschool co-ops can't hold 5.4 million public school children. I'm going to give you a stat real quick, James. If you look, Fort Worth ISD has been in the news for 30-something% of third graders not being on grade level reading, okay? if you go back and you look at the 2003, at that time it was the tax test. I'll give you a little history lesson. We started off with the TABS, then went to the TAMS, then went to the TOS and the tax. Started off in 1979 as assessing students' basic skills. That was TABS, basic skills. Fast forward all the way to 2004, and we're assessing knowledge and skill tax tests. Fort Worth ISD third graders had an 89% grade level grade level on reading at 89% in third grade in 2004. Now, you tell me what the legislature has done since then and what our politicians have done. You know what they did? They said, well, that's not, we need to change that. Let's go to the STAR. Okay, let's put other regulations on public schools and teachers. And then we had these woke leaders that came into the school systems and said, well, let's just start catering and pandering to the minority groups. And I'm not talking minority ethnically. I'm just talking about minority mindsets. And then we said, and then the state, the TEA, which is the largest bureaucracy in the country. Again, I love President Trump. He's talking about tearing down the Department of Education. Where's Greg Abbott talking about cutting the Texas Education Agency? We should be doing the same thing here in Texas. We should have a commissioner.
Yeah, we like the sound of that over here in the studio audience.
We've not had a commissioner at TEA that is a practitioner probably since 2000 or maybe 99. I don't think we've had one in the 2000s that's actually been a practitioner and knows what's going on in public schools and that can fix it. And I've just sat back and until I'm blue in the face talking to these politicians to say, we can get this right, and we can provide school choice. I'm 100% believer that a parent should be able to take their money and take their kid where they want to take them and not put them in a school system that their kids are being bullied, they're being indoctrinated. But I'm also 100% believer that we have to fix that system because you can't put all those kids in private schools.
Yeah, and look, I remember when I was in grade school, it was the TEAMS test, TEA, Educational Assessment, whatever, MS, TEAMS test. And I remember taking this test and being like, this is the easiest test I have ever taken. Who is failing this? Who is not up to snuff on this test? And I felt like they just got dumber as I got older. Or I don't mean dumber, I mean just easier and easier.
Well, what we had an assessment system where we truly, it was a basic assessment.
Oh, wait, hang on. I just looked at the clock. Lance, let me hit pause on my Lance remote here. We'll continue with Lance Johnson from the Seek Collaborative because I want to ask him a little bit of guidance for you people thinking about pulling your kids out and homeschooling, what that transition looks like, because this is the guy who helps people do it. That's coming up on The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome on The James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We're continuing with Lance Johnson from the Seek Collaborative, and I think all of us got a taste of what homeschool could possibly be during COVID, and for a lot of people, it's stuck. For a whole bunch of people listening, this is something that's been kind of rattling around in the back of their head as you see, misbehaving teachers who get a little too handsy with the students, or maybe the content of some of the explicit books in the library, or now you got the deportations, the illegal immigration issues that are coming up in public schools. A lot of people are looking into homeschool, but they just aren't ready to make the jump. So, Lance, let me ask you some of the basic questions that me and Miss Parker have tossed around because we've thought about going homeschooling. How do we pull this off if one of us has to quit our job? If we go from a 2-income household to a 1-income household, I think that's one of the big barriers we have.
Yeah, I think that's just a sacrifice that a lot of families have made and have chosen to make because of their kids' education. But I don't know if it's necessarily something that you have to do permanently, and I don't know if it's something you have to do, unequivocally every day of the week. So, there's a lot of co-op opportunities now. There's a lot of hybrid schools that are popping up, and so those
explain hybrid school.
Okay, so for example, Seek Collaborative is a hybrid school where we go to school 2 days a week with teachers, and on Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, whatever your schedule allows. And those teachers provide those kids with project-based learning models and entrepreneurial skills, and we engage basically in helping kids find and identify their God-given passions and God-given talents, and then we help refine those through community service and project-based learning. And so at the end of the day, those kids are with their classmates 2 days a week, but the parent is still responsible for their education overall. So, for example, in my household on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, we have a freshman daughter, and we teach her. We use resources that we vet and we pick online to teach Algebra 1, biology, world geography, some of the other courses that we determine to take. We have students that take courses out at the Mineral Wells State Park. We have students that take courses with other students on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So even at Weatherford College, Weatherford College is a great resource for homeschool families of high school age kids here in Parker County. So at the end of the day, what technology has done and what like you said, COVID showed us a lot, and kudos to parents that pulled their kids out of schools. If they're listening and you pulled your kid out of the school that was forcing your kid to wear a mask all day, kudos to you for standing up for your kid, because the adults in this state did not stand up for your kids. I want to say that clearly. You did, and I applaud you for that. But there's so many resources. The other concern we hear a lot of times from parents is, what about socializing, and what about sports and extracurricular activities? There is a plethora of extracurricular activities for homeschool families. In fact, James, my daughter plays on a basketball team called the PT Warriors.
Well, that was my next question, because I have a close friend, Miss Parker's close friend, was homeschooling her kids, and then when the oldest one got to high school age, he wanted to play football, so he started going to school.
There are homeschool football programs. There are homeschool track programs. There's a homeschool prom in Dallas. There's a homeschool. There are anything you can find in a public school that you think you would miss, you could find that in today's world for homeschool families. In fact, we're going to be in Springfield, Missouri. We just won the district tournament. I get to coach our team as well, my daughter's team. We have 14 awesome young kids, girls that are. If you saw them, James, you would think they're the best kids in the world. But we're going to Springfield, Missouri, and playing in a national tournament. It's the National Christian Homeschool Tournament. Your listeners can look it up. There's 400 teams, and there's 1,200 basketball games in 1 week right off in Springfield, Missouri in March. That's the kind of support and push that homeschools have around this country. In Texas, there's an estimated 1 million homeschool children.
Well, we can get that number higher. Another thing that I see some people hesitating on is, how can I homeschool my kid? I couldn't even go back and do the math that I did in high school now. I don't remember the cosine law. I'm not qualified to teach trigonometry. What do you say to those parents?
There are so many resources that will match the values and the morals and expectations of that parent at home online. For example, we use a lady called Nicole the Math Lady. She teaches all her lessons. They're pre-recorded. You can find just about any math lesson you want from kindergarten through, I believe, maybe even pre-calculus on her website. And she uses Saxon Math. I mean, you can, which I'm a fan of, but you can find literally any resource that you want as a parent that will match your values, your expectations, and your standards as a parent without having to be the core provider of that content to your child. And then you're just guiding them through the learning. You're helping them with, again, becoming an adult through the different phases of their life, and you're not worried about what are they being taught at school, 40 hours a week that I don't want them to learn, because you're right there with them. For example, with our basketball team, I love that my daughter and her friends ride with me to the games instead of a school bus that who knows what's going on inside that bus. I mean, it's just once you again, you're talking to a guy that did 27 years of public education. So I know that world inside and out. And for the last 2 years, my family has been blessed to be a part of the homeschool community and see just the wonderful families that are involved in that. And I would encourage any of your listeners, do not hesitate to make that leap. There are resources available for you, and we can help you with that. We
have school districts now in North Texas that have adopted the Bible-infused curriculum as it's described in the media. Is this looking good? Is this kind of what we expected, or is it watered down? Should we be happy about this?
Here's my position on that. There's no reason why schools shouldn't teach principles in the Bible that make us good humans. For example, the 10 Commandments. Is it really wrong to teach kids not to kill, or not to steal, not to lie? I mean, if we called them those 10 life principles something other than the 10 Commandments, people would love them. But when you put the 10 Commandments title on it, people go, oh, well, that's religious. That's Christianity. Hey, you know what? This country was founded on Christian principles. Go back and look at your history books. This education was founded so that people could learn to read the Bible. That's why we wanted kids to learn to read in the first place, so that we could learn to read the Bible, and the government couldn't tell us something that was in it that wasn't in it. We want, but we've gotten so far from that. We've gotten to where the government controls our education. Why have we accepted that since LBJ started the United States Department of Education in 1962, I believe? Why have we as a society just caved to that? And again, I want your listeners to go back and look at Senate Bill 2. That bill is going to allow up to 100,000 kids potentially to get one of those credits. That will be government mandated. Don't miss out on that. Out of 5.4 million children, that's less than 2% that will qualify for one of those ESAs.
All right, Lance. So we're just out of time here. How do they find you online?
They can find me at commonsenseedu.com. That's my consulting firm, commonsenseedu.com. They can find my cell phone number there. And if anybody from Greg Abbott's office is listening, feel free to call me. I'd love to debate you on how you don't care about our children. Or
All right, there he is, Lance Johnson, Coming up next, we're going to talk to a tax expert. It's tax season, but there's also some new tax scams that people are falling for. We'll keep you safe next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yeah, you just heard Mike Traina talk about it. We are in tax season now. Woo! I don't know. Why are we applauding that? Turn that off. Oh, I can't turn off the studio audience. Why would you applaud that? Taxes, I hate it. I hate taxes with the hot, hot heat of 1,000 suns. And then on top of that, while you're trying to do it, while you're trying to be a good citizen and follow all the rules, you have people out there running scams. And since technology is changing by the day, now we have new scams to deal with. So I'm bringing in an expert to help us parse through some of this and keep you safe. Chris Wilbert, he's a tax expert with Echelon Financial. So tell me, tax scams probably been around as long as taxes, but what are the new scams we need to watch out for, Chris?
Well, the scammers are getting more and more creative. They're reaching out to people by email, by mail, by email, by phone, and by text. And they're using the IRS logos, they're using other governmental agencies to get people to click on the link and fall for their scams.
Well, I think they're giving government too much credit because, Social Security is not going to give you a call. Social Security is not going to send you an email. They still do like the old fashioned letter, like a physical letter. They put it in an envelope and they put it in the mail and it takes a couple of days, but they still use that. And so I find it interesting how much you give the government too much credit if you think they are the ones sending you this email.
They are definitely not. The only way the IRS is going to contact you is by mail.
That's weird. They haven't even got up to the rotary phone yet, huh? Telegraph, maybe?
No, not at all. Not at all. And it's all centered around identity theft. And so they want to trick you to get your information. And they're counting on people being busy with family and work. And they see the link and they're in a hurry and they just react. And then before you know it, they're stealing your identity. And they'll file fraudulent tax returns. And so that happened about 295,000 times back in 2023. Ooh. And that's down from a peak of like 328,000 in 2021. So it is a real problem. And in 2023, it cost the U.S. $5.5 billion.
Yeah, and I can, talk down and be all smarmy about it, but I've clicked on the wrong emails before. I've been phished, but I think generally we're getting better at recognizing some of these emails and some of these scams. Is there some new twist we need to be looking for on these?
Well, what they're starting to see is these ghost retail fronts where they'll set up a tax preparation service. They'll open it up in a retail center. People will come in, they'll do their taxes. And when they give them their information, they're stealing their identity, and then they will do everything in their power to create as large of a refund as possible. And when the refund comes back to the tax service, they steal the refund.
Yikes. So how do you make sure you're not getting caught up with one of these pop-ups?
Well, the best way to do it is to either work with an actual CPA firm, or if you're going to work with a tax preparation service, maybe go with one of the national brands that you see advertising all the time. And another great way is to ask friends and family who they've been working with for years.
Yeah, see, some of these things, I'm from a really small town, and so we don't have to worry about that. Like, how do you trust someone to do your taxes? There's no such thing as a pop-up, Who does your taxes? Scott. Scott does my taxes. That's how we roll out there. But I guess, when you're in a metropolitan area, 7 million people, it's really hard to vet everybody, especially if you're new to town. Let's talk about the tax identity theft, though. I mean, them taking your fees to pretend to do your taxes, that's just the beginning of the problems. Now they have your ID, and God knows what they're doing with it.
Absolutely. I mean, they're going to be off to the races, applying for credit cards. They might try and buy a car, you name it. If they're savvy enough to do the pop-up and get all your information, they've got a game plan and they're executing on it like immediately. And before you know it, you'll start getting all the notices for applications. And that's why it's always good also to have the credit monitoring services.
Right. That's probably a great one. So let's look at DC. Are they doing anything to fix this? Does anybody have any proposals to sort of update the regime as it is, or is this just all on us?
The IRS does try to find them, but there's so much going on, and there's so few IRS agents and in their criminal investigative division that they just can't keep up with it all.
Did they just hire like 80,000 new IRS agents? Can't they just scoot some of those over to the criminal investigation side instead of the audit side?
Yeah, that would be great if they could, but the 80,000 really were meant to replace the people that were retiring over the next 5 years. So, the net amount is going to be about the same. So, unfortunately, they can't do that, but it would be great if they did. The best thing that people can do is to go onto the IRS's website, and there's a page on tax preparer misconduct. And so if they're a victim of it, they can file the forms so that the IRS can recognize that it was a fraudulent return and won't hold them accountable for it.
All right, Chris Wilbert, nice chat. Thanks for keeping us updated on tax scams. Where do they find your work outside of WBAP?
At echelonfinancial.com.
Thank you very much, Chris Wilbert.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next, I found a video that's being passed around, a secret recording of a Fort Worth City Councilman, Chris Nettles. I don't know if you've heard the name. He's on a hot mic referring to a staff worker as white trash. Now, some people are saying that's completely unacceptable, but you'll hear what I think next. I'm not so sure this has cost him his job. I'll give you the context and then see what you think. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.